Największe premiery sierpnia, moi drodzy. Zobaczmy, w co będziemy grać. Wiemy, że w Beasts of Reincarnation, ale co poza tym? Warto się przyjrzeć temu, może wy też coś tutaj podłapiecie. Materiał od IGN-u, więc proszę się uzbroić na leciutką dawkę cringe'u od pana Maxa, ale my tu przyszliśmy na premier, nie? Więc no.
Hey everybody, it's me, that guy with the game releases every month. As it is currently or soon to be a brand new month, we are back once again with another brand new video all about what's coming out soon. Here are August 2026's biggest game releases.
Dawaj to.
Before we get into it, the usual caveat, we do our very best to make these videos accurate and up to date, but game release dates have a tendency to change and human beings have a tendency to make mistakes now and then, so for best results, always check your local listings. A great place to start is IGN.com/upcoming, which is regularly updated and full of fascinating information. And now, on to the games. Are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? No? Well, what about to run against him? Anomaly President is a roguelite action game with a side of base building and a pinch of dancing, where you play as a presidential hopeful who's on the campaign trail by day and who battles his enemies by night. That one's hitting early access on Steam August 3rd. On August 4th, Beast of Reincarnation hits Xbox Series, PS5 and PC.
Już jutro wychodzi, z perspektywy widzów na YouTubie albo jutro, albo dzisiaj. Zapowiada się dobrze, zobaczymy.
Which is the all-new post-apocalyptic
I 3 wychodzi, nie 4. No, tutaj już IGN się piknął leciutko.
action RPG from Game Freak, the studio best known for Pokemon. But this time around, instead of making flora and fauna battle each other for your entertainment, you'll be taking matters into your own hands and battling some flora and fauna yourself. Also that day is Big Walk, which is the latest from House, the studio that gave us Untitled Goose Game. This one is an open-world co-op multiplayer puzzle game that looks
Spoko, ale czemu postacie wyglądają jak totalne gówno?
somewhere between The Witness, Death Stranding, and any number of those goofy co-op Steam games lovingly referred to as Friend Slop. Given the studio's previous work, I am extremely intrigued. That one's on PS5, Switch 2, and PC. On the 6th, the big one is Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, the latest 2D fighter from
To się zastanawiam, czy nie sprawdzić tej bijatyki od Marvela, bo wygląda spoko bardzo. Lepiej niż tu XKO od Riotu.
Arc System Works. As you'd expect, it looks absolutely gorgeous. When it's not moving so stupidly fast, it's hard to tell what's even happening. This one takes some cues from Capcom's beloved Marvel brawlers, but one thing I appreciate is exactly how many liberties the studio was able to take with character designs here. Look at that! They gave Iron Man a V-fin, like a Gundam. Anyway, that one is only on PS5 and PC. Speaking of mechanized humanoids, that day also sees the release of Echo Breaker, an isometric speedrunner where you make an armored rig literally jump through hoops as fast as it can. Meanwhile, if you'd rather make a Timothy Chalamet-looking Pinocchio parry a bunch of steampunk mechs in the best Bloodborne knockoff to date, the Lies of P Complete Edition comes to Nintendo Switch 2.
Widać, że Nintendo chce tych soulsiarzy przyciągnąć do siebie, czy to właśnie obecnością Lies of P, czy to tym Dusk Blotsem od Miyagiego. Zobaczymy, kurwa, jakim to wyjdzie. Ja o Dusk Blotsach wiecie, co myślę i wiecie, co myślę o braku marketingu do tej gry. Dziwne to jest bardzo, ale no spoko, że Lies of P wychodzi. Pytanie, jak będzie chodzić.
Still that day on everything but the PlayStations is Montabi, or Montabi, or Montabai? I don't know how you say it, but it's a roguelike deck builder and creature collector, and if you ask me, it's about time someone combined the charm of Pokemon with the thrill of card games. There are plenty of tower defense games, but what about tower management? Well, that's what Sovereign Tower is, and you'll be telling a castle full of whimsical weirdos what to do, which I have a hunch may yield some hilarious results. That's on PC for now.
To spoko wygląda.
Finally that day, Uncanny Tales The Watcher is a first-person psychological horror game where you work as a park ranger observing the goings-on in the park, but beware, someone else is also observing them as well. So basically 5 nights at
Ty, fajna giera może być w sumie, z obserwowania lasów i anomalii jakichś czy coś.
Firewatch, I guess? Anyway, that's on PC. On August 11th, The Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered comes to Nintendo Switch 2, and it's
Oblivion Remaster na Nintendo Switcha, czyli Oblivion.
always cool to me when such a massive game like this comes to such a teeny tiny device. Obviously, we've gotten Skyrim and The Witcher 3 and 2 incredible open world Zelda games on the original Switch, but it's still just neat to me that you can take an entire interactive fantasy microcosm and shrink it down and take it on the go like that.
I just think they're neat.
If you'd prefer some fantasy fare that's considerably less serious than Oblivion, there's also Stonewords on PC, which is a roguelike defense game that looks like a mix of Minecraft, Dungeon Defenders, and
To też fajnie wygląda, kurwa. Taka pierdołowata gierka, wiecie, że czasami takie lubię.
Deep Rock Galactic. Can you dig it?
Can you dig it?
On the 12th, also on PC, there's Verde, which, as you might have suspected from the title, being the Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese word for green, involves growing some little tiny plants. In fact, a whole little tiny plant city worth of them. On August 13th, you can run through the jungle with up to 99 other unfortunate sons in Hell Let Loose Vietnam.
Gierka typu Hell yeah.
This features intense 50v50 battles with appropriately asymmetrical gameplay that simulates the radically different tactics and ordnance employed by the factions involved in that particularly hellish conflict. That one's on Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. A day later on those very same platforms, Mafia: The Old Country gets a DLC expansion in Man of Honor, which features 2 new story chapters and some new free ride content for just $10. Considering the deluge of games coming out this fall, dropping a 10
Kurde, ta mafia była nawet okej fabularnie, ale gameplayowo to ja pierdolę. Boże, jakie nudy. Ja tylko próbowałem przebiec od jednej cutscenki do drugiej.
game from last year feels a little like entering a rubber dinghy in a jet boat race, but considering that Mafia's got the same parent company as Grand Theft Auto, maybe a rising tide raises all ships after all? Another property that falls under the Take-Two Interactive umbrella is BioShock, and since we haven't had one of those in a while and none are officially on the horizon, you might be interested in Twisted Tower, a spooky, stylized FPS set in an abandoned 1950s theme park. That one's just on PC for now. It's also been a second since we got a big, gross, chunky Souls-like.
I to jest kurwa premiera. Wielki powrót do Souls-like'ów, widzowie. Mortal Shelling 2. Boże, to wygląda tak dobrze. Grałem sobie w demo. Jak nie widzieliście, to zapraszam na YouTube'a. Tam jest gameplay z dema, czy tam z bety. Bardzo dobrze się to zapowiada i aż jestem w szoku, że to mówię, bo Mortal Shell 1 był gównem, kurwa. A Mortal Shell 2... no kurde, wypisał sobie notateczki z tego, co nam wyszło w jedynce, czyli nie zapisali nic, a potem wzięli, kurde, chyba z innych tytułów notatki i kurczę, wygląda to dobrze.
But on August 20th, that changes with Mortal Shell 2. The original Mortal Shell was far from perfect, but it shows some potential and had some killer art direction, and based on the reception to the demo, it sounds like the devs pumped all their XP and money from the first game into the sequel. That one's on Xbox Series,
Czy
PS...
trzeba rozumieć fabułę? Znaczy, wydaje mi się, że no jak w typowym Souls-like'u, fabuły nawet jak chcesz, to nie zrozumiesz i trzeba będzie potem film obejrzeć o niej. Nie skupiałbym się na tym aspekcie. Raczej, jeżeli ktoś lubi sobie napierdalać moby, bossy i rozwijać postać, to po prostu gierę odpala, więc chyba nie ma przymusu grania w jedynkę.
PS5 and PC. Still that day on Switch is Over Requiems, which is an ultimate dating game in which you play as a high school girl who gets sucked into a tornado and transported to the land of Oz, where she's sentenced to death for having dark hair and dark eyes, and then proceeds to romance the men that she meets on death row. Sure, let's go with it. A day later on PC is Dwarf, a pinball roguelike, which, as the name suggests, is a roguelike featuring pinball, but also pachinko and turn-based combat, and you play as a dwarf pirate riding around in a minecart.
A nie wygląda to źle. Jezu, jaki jest wysyp tych klikerów, roguelike'ów, inkrementali teraz, to jest coś niesamowitego.
It looks like a little pirate ship. If you enjoyed the chemicals your brain shot out while playing games like Vampire Survivors and Balatro and Ball Pit, this seems like it might elicit a similarly generous dopamine response. If you want to beat the heat, you can chill out in Permafrost, a co-op or solo survival game set in a wintry post-apocalypse, which kind of sounds like freeze-dried Subnautica with seasonal depression. Breaking news. Too much stuff is coming out August
Breaking news to kurde... Gdzie jest Sinking City? Przecież Sinking City 2 wychodzi chyba zaraz obok Mortal Shell'a i nie powiedzieli o nim.
27th. For starters, there's Star Wars Zero Company, which is basically Star Wars plus XCOM plus Mass Effect 2, which looks fantastic, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Meanwhile, Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy is a new installment in that narrative stealth adventure series, which looks to be a little more...
Kurde, w tego Plague Tale'a nie będę grać. Ale wygląda jak jakaś zmiana podejścia. Bo poprzednie Plague Tale'a, no to co? Były skradanki, takie bardzo proste, ale z bogatą fabułą, a tutaj mamy postawienie na jakiegoś akcyjniaka. No mi bardziej przypomina jakieś te nowoczesne asasyny w ogóle.
action focus in which may or may not contain a Minotaur. If you're still riding high on World Cup fever, still that day there's Captain Tsubasa 2 World Fighters, which features 110 playable characters from the beloved soccer anime, but if that's somehow not enough, there's also a robust character creator for creating robust custom characters as well as waifish sickly ones if you're into that. All of these games are on Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. On those platforms, plus Switch 2 that day as well, is Brigandine Abyss, the third installment in the tactical strategy RPG series that got its start almost
Kurwa, gierka, co wygląda gorzej niż mobilki sprzed 10 lat. To już trzeba mieć talent.
30 years ago on the PS1. Fun fact, Brigandine is a type of armor, and Abyss is another word for a deep pit. So the name of this game is synonymous with plate mail crevasse or ballistic hole, but who cares? It sounds cool. Speaking of cool sounding video game names that are actually pretty stupid if you think about them for more than 10 seconds, Metal Gear Solid is about a guy named Solid who fights things called Metal Gears, which is the same naming convention as Crocodile Dundee.
That's not a knife. That's a knife. I see you've played Knifey Spoony before.
Anyway, if you don't have a problem with people going on long-winded, semi-coherent tangents like I've been known to do in these videos, you'll have no problem at all with Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots.
No nie mogę się doczekać, aż ta kolekcja wyjdzie, bo to pozwoli nam w końcu zagrać w Metal Geara nie tylko 4, ale i w Peace Walkera. I fabularnie, jeżeli mamy iść, no to trzeba będzie zagrać w Peace Walkera, 5 i potem 4. I tak na pewno zrobimy, nie wiem czy na premierę, bo tam się dużo będzie działo, też chyba ten Elden Ring Tarnished Edition wychodzi, ale no na pewno będę chciał sobie wrócić do Metal Geara i ograć w te pozostałe części, bo na razie jesteśmy po 3. A Metal Gear mi się naprawdę podobał. Jedyna chyba skradanka, którą tak serio polubiłem.
One of 3 games making up the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2, the other 2 being the HD version of Peace Walker and the gorgeous little Game Boy Color game Ghost Babel. Peace Walker's gotten a few ports and re-releases over the years since it originally came out for the PSP, but this is the first time MGS4 is playable on anything but a PS3, which is pretty cool. If you're trying to play these games chronologically, 4 is the sequel to 2.
To jest pojebane, że dopiero w 2026 roku ludzie, którzy chcą zagrać w Metal Gear Solid, będą mogli w to zagrać poza PlayStation 3. To jest mega dziwne, że Konami tak późno to zrobiło.
And Peace Walker is the sequel to 3 and the prequel to 5. And if you think that's convoluted, wait till you hear the plots to these games. That one's on current gen, PC, and Switch 1. And finally, if you've got a Switch 2 and some time to kill, a couple more enormous RPGs that need no introduction are getting shrunken down for that little device. Final Fantasy XIV Online, A Realm Reborn, and Elden Ring Tarnished Edition. Once again, it's wild to me you can...
I Elden Ring Tarnished Edition faktycznie nas ciekawi, bo ma dodać kilka nowych klas startowych, chyba 2, i nowe itemy, więc trzeba będzie to przetestować.
Take such massive games on the go on such a little tiny machine. I guess you could play it hooked up to the TV too with that dock thing. I'm told some people actually do that, which is totally fine. Just like it's fine to wear a bathing suit in the shower or practice skateboard tricks in the garage, or you keep a can of SpaghettiOs in the cup holder in the car so you can eat them on the road. All of those things are okay. Did you know it's legal in all 50 states to drive barefoot? It's true. I Googled it. I'm just kidding. Playing your Switch docked isn't weird at all. Anyway, folks, there you have it. The biggest... Hey, wait, hold on. Sorry, that's not everything. I recorded this month's episode a little bit early to get ahead of San Diego Comic-Con, but a handful of games got release dates since then that I wanted to shout out really quick. There are a whole lot of games where you run around with an axe and chop stuff up, but
Będziemy w to grali. Gra o ścinaniu drewna. Count me in, nie? Nie potrzebuję nic więcej.
Chop Inc. is the only one I can think of where your primary objective is to make furniture, and that one hits PC on the...
Wytłumacz mi, jak to działa, nie? Że takie gry naprawdę gra mi się lepiej, gry za 20-30 zł o kurwa niczym, niż 90% gier AAA, które aktualnie wychodzi. W sensie, wiecie, dalej raz na jakiś czas mam premierę, no teraz wychodzi ten Beasts of Reincarnation, który mnie interesuje, faktycznie. We wrześniu tego będzie sporo, parę gier w tym miesiącu też, ale overall te gry, te małe kurde niby slopiki, jarają mnie 300 razy bardziej, bo one stawiają na jedną drobną rzecz, która po prostu jest strasznie fajna, jest przemyślana, niż kurde są rozdmuchanymi wielkimi otwartymi światami z fabułą kurde napisaną na 100 godzin, często bez sensu.
7th. Also on PC on the 13th is Memoirium, and that is a surreal, dreamlike, low-poly Souls-like that has you doing normal Soulsy stuff, but then you also have to decorate your crappy low-poly dorm room. Looks cool.
Ty, spoko to wygląda, kurwa, nie słyszałem o tym.
Soulsy stuff, but then you also have to decorate your crappy low-poly dorm room. Looks cool. Also that day on PC, as well as Xbox Series and PS5, is Pro Jank Footy, and based on the trailer, it kind of reminds me of Thank Goodness You're Here, except it's Australian and a football game, so it's not really that much like Thank Goodness You're Here aside from its bizarre sense of humor, but in any case, thank goodness it's here because it looks hilarious. On the 19th, Project Pit hits PC, which is a physics-based game about throwing rubber ducks in a hole for some reason, which sounds like a cross between Portal and that one Tiny Toon Adventures episode where Plucky keeps flushing stuff down the toilet.
To nie jest w sumie gra, która jest jak Berry Burry Berry, czy coś takiego. Wygląda bardzo podobnie w założeniu.
Never go down the hole.
On August 25th, Aliens Fireteam Elite 2 comes to Xbox Series, PS5, and PC, which involves more of the co-op bug zapping that the first installment did well, but ups your squad size from 3 to 4 members and introduces a new specialist class that lets you mix and match abilities and perks to become the ultimate badass space marine with the most state-of-the-badass art loadout possible. Also on the 25th is Blood Dungeon, which is a roguelike platformer from Messhoff, the people who gave us Nidhogg, one of my favorite games of all time, and it has the same gruesome low-res aesthetic and menacing aura that masterpiece does, and it's on both Switches, Xbox, PS5, and PC. If you want something that colors inside the lines a little bit more than that, Box Knight is also out on the 25th for PC, and that is also an action roguelite that kind of looks like Dungeon Defenders if Dungeon Defenders had to grow up and get an office job and then defend an office instead of a dungeon. And finally, one more game I'm really stoked for is the Immortal John Triptych, another Monty Python-esque point-and-click from the studio behind Procession to Calvary, which is made entirely using cut-up old paintings, specifically the work of my favorite artist, Hieronymus Bosch, who you might know as the 15th century Flemish painter who posthumously designed a bunch of the monsters for Metaphor Refantasio. Either that or Atlas ripped off a bunch of drawings by a dead guy. Either way, the Immortal John Triptych is on Xbox Series, PS5, PC, and both the Switches. Okay, that's it. No more games. That's all we
No i kurwa dalej zapomniałeś o Sinking City. Pozdrawiam cię serdecznie, Max.
can get to this month. Before I go, the usual thanks to everybody who helps this video come
Dobra, tak czy inaczej, trochę tych premier jest, mam nadzieję, że coś tam wam w oko wpadło. Tu takich pomniejszych gierek kilka mi się spodobało, nie wiedziałem o nich, także spoko, może ruszę. Ten Dwarf Pinball Roguelike wyglądał fajnie i jakieś inne rzeczy. DLC do Darkesta 1 wychodzi, to prawda, tego nie będę ruszał, bo to w ogóle jest rzecz, która w modach była przez lata i która w ogóle jest z Darkesta 2 po prostu przeportowana w dużej mierze. Ale no tak, Beasts of Reincarnation na pewno, Metal Gear Solid na pewno, Mortal Shell, Sinking City, kilka pomniejszych gierek. W skrócie będzie co robić w sierpniu. Zdecydowanie będzie co robić. I dajcie znać widzowie z YouTube'a, w co wy będziecie grać. A jak już gracie, to pamiętajcie, żeby sobie kupować gry na instancie, najlepiej z mojego linka w opisie lub na wykrzyknik instant, bo jest taniej, nie?